Hello everyone and welcome back guys to a brand new video where today we're here back with episode 26, I want to say, of Jamie183 and I's podcast here. The Unnamed Motorsport podcast. Yeah, 26 episodes. We're half a year in, Jamie. And, well, really we've been doing it for about 7-8 months, so we've not done too badly.
Yeah, I'm very surprised.
Yeah, I think we've done better than either of us thought we would up to this stage of the year there. But of course, the US Grand Prix, another nail-biting finish, another decent race. Obviously, we spoke about Turkey a couple of weeks back. It was a bit underwhelming. I think we can agree, the Turkish Grand Prix. The USA was kind of the opposite, wasn't it? Not a lot happened, but there was a lot of stuff that nearly happened, which I think is obviously sort of the main talking point.
And I think you came away from that race thinking you enjoyed watching. So that's always a good sign.
Well, I didn't. I came away from that race just thinking pain, but still.
I enjoyed watching, so there's that.
I'm sure you did, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you did at the end of the day. No, to be fair, I've said this in a couple of videos recently. I did enjoy the Grand Prix, and I think as long as we don't get something out of Lewis and Max's control between now and the end of it defines the title, I think whichever way it goes, that driver probably deserves. Would you agree? Like, if we don't get an engine failure and we don't get someone else crash into one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I'd argue Max has had way more bad luck this year, but like it's sort of like they're at a point now where it doesn't really matter with 5 races to go, does it? So just clean fight to the end.
I'd argue he's had more bad luck, but he's also had a car that should mean he's further ahead as well.
Yeah. I think over the course of the season, the Red Bull's been slightly faster.
Yeah, the Red Bulls had enough of a difference, but considering when you think about how similar a level both Hamilton and Max are operating on this year. Yeah, you think,
and they're
Max
so far clear of the rest of the drivers.
Yes, and that's something we'll get onto later on in the video. But there was already controversy before we got into the weekend. Of course, there was Twitter, weirdly enough, mainly Ferrari fans. I noticed going mad at the Mercedes back end, and clearly not understanding how suspension and aerodynamics work.
Well, Twitter doesn't really have a degree in aerodynamics, so it's not a surprise that they don't know what they're talking about. But I know nothing about this. So it's all you.
So basically, what the issue for a lot of people was, now obviously there's been all the talk this year, isn't there, about how the low rate cars, they just haven't worked very well this year. The small tweaks and changes really did nerf the likes of Mercedes and Aston Martin, yes?
Yeah.
Basically, what Mercedes have done is they've now or whether it's created or whether it's just the way they've tuned it, but the suspension, when it goes fast enough, drops more. So obviously underneath the car, obviously with the diffuser, you're basically trying to create a vacuum, aren't you, anyway? Obviously that hasn't been as important in the last few years for a lot of the teams because they're running such a high rake. Mercedes, obviously running a lower rake, have been able to drop the suspension more at high speed and obviously create more of a vacuum, which has made the car quicker down the straights.
Yeah.
Now, where the issue lies for that for some people is they seem to believe it's active suspension. What they seem to have forgot, on the other hand, is the faster a car moves, the more air pressure is over it.
Yeah.
The more the suspension is going to dip. Yes, that's just how physics works.
So that's obviously a bit beyond the technical capabilities of Twitter.
People are trying to compare it to the flexi wings that Red Bull had at the start of the year. But it's a completely different component of the car. You can tune the wings to not bend as much through the rules completely fine. That's obviously just them trying to exploit a loophole in the rules. And Mercedes are trying to do a similar thing with the suspension, but the suspension is always going to have to bend, otherwise things like the rear crash structure won't work. And all this, that, and the other.
Like, a car won't look exactly the same at 0 miles an hour until like 200.
Exactly. Exactly. But, yeah, that was sort of like the pre-weekend controversy. You had, again, obviously, this then brings up the whole thing from, especially I've noticed it's mainly Ferrari fans who are then going, well, no one
trying to dig up 2019,
Yeah, they literally just don't seem to understand. Like, people think Ferrari are dodgy because they got called up on something and then lost a ton of performance.
They lost about 8
That has never happened to Mercedes. Like, why do people not seem to be able to understand this? It's not like they've gone to Mercedes, oh, your suspension seems a bit odd, and then suddenly Mercedes are 3 seconds off the pace this weekend. It's just I just don't get like how Ferrari fans can't, or some Ferrari fans just can't understand Twitter, it. Usually. Yeah, but it's just funny. But heading into the weekend though, talking points from sort of Friday and Saturday. Did you watch qualifying?
Yes, I did.
I watched most of it. Yeah, I missed out the good bit.
Out of any of them.
I fell asleep. The last thing I can remember is the cars going out for their first run in Q3. Can you talk me through it? After Mercedes, we must add, looked really fast on Friday.
Yeah, Mercedes were a second clear in FP1, so everyone was like, "Oh, this is it, goodbye title." And then, Q3, the first runs. Hamilton completes his lap first, goes fastest, obviously.
You'd hope that if he went first, yeah.
Then Max beat him by about 0.3, and then Perez, who was just behind Max, went ahead of Max onto provisional pole by a few hundredths. It was like 200ths or something, and the whole of USA went crazy because obviously they're all Mexicans. I mean, that doesn't make sense.
Not in Texas, they aren't.
No, but all the fans there, there were a lot of Mexican fans there this weekend, so they were going mental.
Because it's just across the border.
Yeah, and then second runs, Hamilton is like doing like I think it was 2-3 tenths up in sector 1 alone on his previous lap. So he must have made a mistake there or something. But anyway, Hamilton again completes the lap first, goes on to provisional pole. Verstappen then takes it away again by 2 tenths. It was a brilliant lap from Max, to be fair. And then Perez, because obviously he's not on the same level as Hamilton or Verstappen, ends up just improving a little bit and was only like 100th or so off of Hamilton. So he very nearly made it a Red Bull front row, but unfortunately not.
Yes, yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? Like, another talking point for the weekend, Perez was on it.
Perez was very on it until his drinks bottle ran out.
Yes, yeah, which we'll talk about a bit more in a moment. And it is something we've seen this from Perez a few times this year, haven't we? But it seems like the last couple of races, he really does seem to have learnt a bit more. He's taken a step forward with the car.
Yeah, and the same thing he said about Ricciardo, actually. He's been doing a lot better.
Yeah, Ricciardo as well. It was another one I wanted to talk about in a moment. Obviously, he finally got to drive his Dale Earnhardt number 3 Chevy Monte Carlo, which is
pretty cool to see.
Sounds insane.
Yeah.
Like, I always knew that thing sounded brilliant. I've seen videos on YouTube of it before. But yeah, seeing the Intimidator number 3 back on track, I must admit, was rather special this weekend. But yeah, Ricciardo as well. Was he quicker than Lando in the end?
Yeah, he was. He beat Norris in qualifying.
But Ferrari, with their power unit upgrade, seem to have the edge on McLaren at the moment, don't they?
I believe it was Leclerc 4th, Sainz 5th, then Ricciardo and Norris 6th and 7th.
Yes, yeah.
Obviously, Bottas qualified 4th, but had 5
right,
penalty.
Yeah, but he was closer to those 4 than he was to the top 3, wasn't he, in the end?
Yeah, Bottas was not on it this weekend at all.
No, rather unsurprisingly.
Yeah,
because this was the thing, wasn't it? We've had all these stats, like after Turkey, going, Bottas, since his new contract, has been the best performer on the grid. And you're like,
Hamilton and Verstappen have had an engine penalty each and crashed out of one of the races.
Yeah, it's insane. But we actually had quite a few Mercedes penalties, didn't we, for this weekend? Bottas, Vettel, and George Russell, all with penalties.
And I've seen talk. I can't remember. Is it either Buxton or the bald one at BBC?
Benson.
Andrew Benson, yeah. Who thinks that Hamilton will have to take another ICE, which would be a 5-place penalty at some point.
Yes.
Just because the way other Mercedes cars are going. And with Mexico being so, you don't want to go anywhere near risking it at Mexico because they blow up at the slightest gust of wind. So
that's the problem. There's no gusts of winds; they're too high up.
Yeah,
you don't get any air into the engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, we'll talk about that a bit more at the end of the podcast, won't we? But I think, maybe there's going to be a penalty coming at Mexico or Brazil. I'd be inclined to say, unless they want to go Jeddah.
I would think Mexico and Brazil are easier to overtake than Jeddah, surely.
Jeddah's just all straights, though, is sort of my thinking. Or just all high-speed downforce stuff.
Mexico is impossible to follow, so it's probably difficult to take one there, because I remember back in 2017 when Merc had a really OP car, they still got stuck behind like Saubers and McLaren Hondas and stuff.
Yes, yeah. Well, that was because Hamilton had damage, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Vettel drove into him at the start. But still, should be overtaken a bit easier.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, I think we'll wait and see what happens for Hamilton between now and the end of the year. But obviously we roll on Sunday. We get Martin Brundle trying to just beef it up with bodyguards. we love the Grundle grid walk, the Brundle grid walk finally back. Yeah, I'll be honest. It was enjoyable this once, but I can't help but feel like generally it's. If someone said to me before the US Grand Prix that they weren't doing it again, I'd be sort of like, oh no.
What, the grid walk?
Anyway, yeah. But
really like
seeing that again was sort of reminding me why I think we love it.
Yeah, it throws up some random stupid interactions that you never thought you'd see.
And I think this is the thing, isn't it? We kind of, as Brits, we kind of need that, don't we? Did you see the one I posted in the Twitter chat of Ozzy Osbourne?
I didn't watch it, no.
You've got to go back and watch it. Ozzy, if you're listening to this, YouTube search Ozzy Osbourne 2003. I want to say Canadian Grand Prix with Martin Brundle. It is brilliant as well there. But we also have
stuff like missing the presentation by Pele.
Yeah,
you wouldn't get that with that. And do you remember when Ted Kravitz and Brazil 08 got out a Union flag in front of the Brazilian fans?
Yes, yep. But this was the problem, wasn't it, then? Because they've been so used to the year before, a lot of Brazilians wanted to see Lewis win.
Yeah.
Because obviously he was a huge Senna fan and all this, and obviously they go back there, and some people just didn't seem to realise everyone there wanted Massa to win that weekend.
Yeah.
But, yeah, going on, though, to the first big worry, though, for the Grand Prix was Pierre Gasly having issues before the start.
I didn't see any of this. I watched the race on Channel 4 because I was out and then didn't look at the results and stuff. So it skipped over all of Gasly's issues and then also skipped over him retiring. It just cut a few laps forward.
Just
and he
Gasly
was
wasn't included on Channel 4.
Yeah, not at all.
They have a strict no French agenda.
They didn't pay his appearance fee.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. But yeah, so apparently it was a sensor issue for Gasly before the Grand Prix. Of course, we'll talk more about his retirement in the race later on there. But we get to the start. Verstappen, I don't know if you noticed this on the formation lap as well, he was heading through the Turkey S section as there were still cars going through Sector 1.
It was, yeah, and he seemed to be on the grid for so long.
He always does this.
He was halfway around, like, basically onto his grid slot when, like, maybe P5 was coming around the last corner. He was so far ahead.
And he does this a lot.
Am I boring you, Matt?
Yes. Sorry, I've had a long day. Yeah, I don't get why he keeps doing this as well. Because, I mean, this weekend it clearly didn't work for him. Because Hamilton mugged him off the start.
I think that was more a reaction time thing.
The 300ths of a second between them.
Yeah.
Which is not
I guess
much.
It's pretty negligible, isn't it? I don't know.
I think it was just Hamilton got a better start this weekend.
Yeah, pretty much. But I can't remember where else he's done the formation lap thing.
A lot of places this year I've noticed he does seem to go rather quickly.
I don't remember him losing that many places on the start.
That many? He only lost the one.
No, but I don't remember that many races where he's lost out from pole.
Oh, right, yeah. No, not really much this season, to be fair. But yeah, obviously, talking about the start then, Hamilton got a slightly better getaway. Obviously, has the inside for turn 1. Verstappen really tried to crowd him out, didn't he, towards turn 1. But Hamilton this time around having absolutely none of it.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm not a professional Formula 1 driver, but I'm surprised that Max didn't swing really far out to the right, like having squeezed Hamilton.
I don't think he could, because you've got the likes of Perez there that could just slew into the back of him if he does that.
Yeah, but like in league racing, that's what you would do. You squeeze someone to the inside and then last minute swing out to the right and get a really wide entry.
It's also, thinking about that at COTA, rather difficult to do, because obviously where it's uphill, yeah, obviously if you're scrubbing speed off to the outside again, it's even more difficult, obviously, because you're more likely to get understeer from the front. Try and dig it back in.
So maybe he's the one who's done his whole life racing, so he probably knows better than me. So maybe he did the best thing. But Hamilton got him on turn 1. Verstappen ran wide. I'm sure Alonso was crying about that.
Probably.
Perez almost got, well, he would have got Verstappen had they not been teammates.
Had he not been in a Red Bull, yeah. That was... I was hoping we'd see Perez sticking at the inside, but obviously I knew immediately he wasn't going to.
Yeah, no
There was that small part of me that, like, Perez suddenly forgets he's in a Red Bull or something. But unfortunately not. For us Lewis fans, unfortunately not. Yeah. We had absolute Canadian carnage, though, at the start. Latifi and Stroll coming to blows.
It was a very strange crash. It was like Stroll was a bit... No, was it Latifi on who made a contact first? I think it was Latifi. They made
contact with each other, didn't they?
No, but like Latifi's front wing hit Stroll's left rear.
Yes.
Yeah, so Latifi was like being basically crowded out from everywhere, had nowhere really to go.
I mean, it could have broke more. Was
Yeah,
kind
he
of what
could
I
have broke
noticed.
more. But yeah, it was a very. I mean, no one really cares because both of them had not much chance of doing anything. So whatever. But
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
And
both
this was the
needed front
thing,
wings.
wasn't it? This weekend, it very much seemed like we had only really 5 teams that were able to score points.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
literally.
AlphaTauri, both Gasly and Tsunoda were on it this weekend, but Ferrari and McLaren are sort of stuck in their own development race, which has sort of brought them away from the rest of the midfield. Obviously, then you've got Mercedes and Red Bull out front, but AlphaTauri now,
They're quite comfortably the 5th fastest.
they're quite comfortably 5th fastest at the moment, as well as Alpine and Aston Martin have really fallen
dropping
towards
off, yeah.
Williams and Alfa Romeo.
And Alfa Romeo picked it up in terms of pace recently. It's just
Well, they
not
brought a
like
new
the
front wing
results
this
yet.
weekend because they're
Yeah.
trying to close up the gap to Williams, which I thought that's going to be near impossible to do because they're basically needing,
Yeah.
3 points a weekend every weekend between now and the end of the year, which he thinks possible a couple of times, but
Yeah.
not for 6
And
races
maybe-
in
I
a
mean,
row.
What, Twain, last time they were at Brazil, Alpha finished 4 and 5, so you never know.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
2019.
Yeah, 2019 Brazil.
Did
Raikkonen
they?
4th, Giovinazzi 5th. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me. You keep talking a second. Is this true?
This is true. That literally, Raikkonen almost got a podium.
Oh no, I'm looking at qualifying.
Because
Yeah,
Gasly
they
was
did.
P2. Hamilton
Didn't
was
they?
3rd, then got a penalty. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you never know. Could happen again.
I think we do because Alfa Romeo then were a lot better than they are now, aren't
Yeah, and that was Gio's one good performance ever. So
they? Yes, yeah.
He's
that
already
year,
used
but
that up.
another drive.
yeah. And speaking of, no, we'll wait for that. That was going to be a good segue, but I'll hang on.
Exactly. Yeah, it was going to be a good segue.
Lap 1 as well. Lando almost overtook everyone and then didn't. That was.
Yep, that was
So-
almost, and he almost Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, he was
Almost.
past. Well, he was temporarily past Ricciardo and Sainz.
I don't think
And
he was
then-
ever past Sainz. Sainz
maybe he
was
wasn't.
pretty late on the brakes as well. Yeah.
And then, yeah, he obviously had to play it cool and not T-bone Leclerc.
Yes.
And then
yeah.
ended up back where he started. So it was a good battle though, all race long between the McLarens and Ferraris. So when the front of the grid isn't that interesting, we've obviously got that to look at, which is quite cool.
Yes. Yeah. And I think this is
Wow.
the thing, isn't
Very
it? Like
long
we
day for you,
said,
wasn't it?
yeah, it was a very long day. I think this was the thing, isn't it? Like we said, Ferrari now. Sorry, I'm just looking through Brazil still. I've noticed Hulkenberg finished 15th that day.
Oh, I don't care. He got a penalty
What?
for overtaking Magnussen on the safety car restart. at
I
the
love the
start
fact you
finish line.
remember that. Oh, that's funny.
And the Renault was terrible that race anyway. I don't care that
Renault's-
Ricciardo was
yeah.
6th.
I mean, we need to talk about that in a moment, don't we, as well? But yeah, Lando super send. Ferrari, like we said, seem to have a small advantage over McLaren at this stage of the game. Whether we're going to see that tip the other way, I thought maybe next week, maybe next time out of Mexico, Mercedes power will be better than Ferrari power.
Yeah, Ferrari does seem the faster car at the minute since that upgrade in Russia, I want to say. Or was it, was it
No,
Turkey?
Turkey.
Yeah, so Leclerc's had back-to-back P4s now in qualifying and race. So, doing pretty well.
Yeah.
He's picking it up, old Charlie.
Old Charlie's Leclerc.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then really, it was kind of a bit dead, wasn't it? For
Yeah.
about the next 20. Well, it was a bit dead on track. Obviously, we see Verstappen pit lap 11. Hamilton then stays out about an extra 3 laps. In all of that, Verstappen's undercutting by like 8 seconds.
Well, just by
out
the
of
one lap, he
nowhere.
would have got the lead. So Mercedes just thought, let's not just come out right behind him. Let's actually give a bit of a tyre differential. Which I can see why they did that.
But you kind of realise they had to do that over the course of the race and then just didn't really do enough of it.
Yeah.
Which was
Yeah.
rather
It was
frustrating to see.
It was a half-hearted differential, really.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, so Max pits lap 11, Hamilton pits lap 14. Now, if you were Mercedes then, Jamie, you see Verstappen out sort of 6-7 seconds ahead. You know your car's slightly better on tyres this weekend. I think that's fair
Also
to say.
slightly better on pace, I would argue, in the race.
Yes, as long
Especially
as
on
you're
the
not
hard
dirty,
tyres.
yeah. Yeah, I'd argue on raw pace alone, you've probably got a couple of tenths at most per lap. What would you have done as Toto Wolff? Toto 183.
I'm sure Toto decides the strategy.
I'm sure he does.
Not Big James Vowles. We share a name, so I'll take him. I probably would have. I mean, you just try and do something a little bit different. What I would have done
Yes.
originally is just preempt the first stop, I think, and pit Hamilton before Verstappen. because that way you
Right.
keep track position.
You pit him very early then.
But like pit lap 9, people were in the pits lap 8 at lap 9. Like,
Yeah, but they
I
were the
think
soft
Hamilton-
runners, weren't they? Oh no, it was like, well, it was
I think-
Ocon because he had damage.
there was someone else as well. Who
Latifi?
pit, I think it was
'Cause he
Lando
had
or one of
damage?
those. Someone pit the lap before Verstappen anyway.
Right.
Who actually wasn't for damage. And then if Hamilton pits then, if you pit first, you're guaranteed to keep the lead because the undercut was so good that like whoever pit first out of those two was going to have the lead. So by not biting the bullet and sending the first stop, you're surrendering the lead that Hamilton's got on the first lap. So
Yes. Yeah.
I think they should have done that. And then obviously it's going to be a bit of a struggle with Red Bull having two cars to fight against one. They would have done exactly the traditional Mercedes thing of leaving Perez out to block Hamilton.
Yes, but Mercedes had such a straight line speed
Straight line
advantage
speed,
this
it wouldn't have been a
weekend.
problem, yeah.
You can't help but feel he would have probably got past him within 2-3 laps at most.
Yeah, I just think a more aggressive
Verstappen
strategy
could have been
would
all over the back of him. Yeah.
a more aggressive strategy would have helped Hamilton for sure. But
Yes.
and it would have been interesting to see at the end because obviously they would have been roles reversed and Verstappen has slightly better tyres, you'd imagine. It would have been interesting to see if he could have overtaken at the end. But I would be less certain.
Yeah, I'd be even less inclined to believe Verstappen would have been able
Just
to
the straight line
overtake
speed.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think if I was Mercedes, I would have tried to stretch Hamilton on those hards a bit longer. Got him to say like lap 40, lap 41, and then go
So he
mediums
pit
to
on
the
37 or 36, didn't
end.
he?
37 or 38, yeah.
Yeah.
And then try and go mediums to the end. So even then, you've got that bit more of, because this was the problem, wasn't it? And obviously we'll talk about this a bit later on. Was Hamilton just didn't have a big enough advantage late on.
Yeah, it wasn't big enough of a differential because it was only 8 laps, which when you're doing a stint of 25 laps, it's not enough really.
No, especially around a track
I'm
Dakota.
never really a big fan of when the teams try and do that sort of strategy, like pit onto the same compound, just younger tyres. Because we saw Red Bull did it in Bahrain when they were trying to beat Hamilton there.
Yeah,
and
just doesn't
the pace
really
was
work.
there to get there, but you didn't have any tyres left by the time you got there. That it was as the stint goes on, you just equal out and get basically the same pace.
Exactly.
I don't know. They're the strategists, I guess, but still.
Yes, yeah. Let's get on then to Fernando Alonso's beef of the week. Feels like it's
been so ridiculous. It
becoming
was quite
like a
amusing,
weekly
to be
segment.
fair.
Yeah, it was incredible to listen to Michael Massey on the radio with him. But yeah, just talk me through this whole instance and series of events.
So I've no clue what lap it was on because it was just between two channels.
Lap 20 odd. It was between lap 22 and 28.
It was when nothing else was happening. Raikkonen absolutely did Alonso around the outside of turn 1. Alonso wasn't having any of it. Tried shoving him out wide. Basically, like hit the side of Kimi, forced him over the exit curve on turn 1 exit, and then straight away is on the radio like, "Give the place back." He overtook me off the track when he literally was crashed into to get off the track. And then a couple of laps later, Alonso was just being absolutely ridiculous with Giovinazzi and just like braking up 50 meters late, driving straight on at the end of the DRS straight, and then just keeping the place because it's like, it's okay for Kimi to pass me off the track, but I can't pass Giovinazzi off the track. And then in the meantime, you've got Alan Permain being an annoying little kid to the radio with Michael Massey. And yeah, Gio and Alonso, it was a very good battle actually. But then 1 lap later, Alonso got the inside line. Gio had to go off again, which I'm surprised the FIA told him to give it back. I guess there wasn't contact.
They
that
didn't.
time.
The team did.
The team told him, yeah, but
I don't think the FIA.
I don't think they would have. No, the FIA maybe didn't.
I don't think the FIA would have made him give it back.
But either way, like it was the same situation. Alonso basically forced him off, but there wasn't contact that time.
Yeah.
Gio kept the place, and then the team told him to give it back. But
yeah,
it was interesting, but it was kind of. It's just showing the flaws in the track limit system in F1.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? And we spoke about this before the podcast slightly. Alonso is just that one annoying guy who, like, knows
he's just there to embarrass
rules.
the teachers, isn't he?
He's just like, he knows the rules, and obviously there's gentleman agreements between the drivers, isn't there? About certain things as well. There's just some stuff you will and won't do to each other, and Alonso just tries to expose that. And, like, he's just completely, well, if someone else does it, I'm going to do it 10 times worse.
Like, the start in Russia was ridiculous.
It's just, like...
It was very funny, and I rate it.
It is
just
funny,
stupid.
yeah. But on the one hand, what needs to happen with Alonso, I think, is at the end of his career, he seriously needs to consider a job with the FIA, whether it comes to rulemaking or
I would love it. It'd be so
stewarding.
funny. Do you remember when he was retiring the first time in the end of 2018, and in one of the press conferences, he was like, maybe I'll stay at F1 as a team boss or a coach or maybe the FIA boss, and Hamilton was like, not while I'm racing.
No, exactly. And I don't think he'd be allowed whilst Hamilton's still racing, to be fair. But yeah, Alonso, don't get me wrong, he's a wildly intelligent guy, but also a dick.
He was just being so ridiculous.
You just wouldn't never want to work with him, would you?
No. You can see why it went so wrong. I think it's because the whole of Alpine is behind him. No one calls him out on it.
No, exactly.
But like when he's at any other team, there's some people in the team who just disagree with the way he goes.
Just
about
they're
things.
like, mate, we don't want to deal with this.
Yeah.
Like again, and it's things like this that I can see why people love him as a driver. But also,
I think he's so amusing. He's entertaining. I wouldn't support him.
It's
but he's
funny
very
when he's
entertaining.
battling in the midfield, isn't it? But if
But
he
if he
was
did that in
doing
the
that,
front,
trying to
yeah.
win races, you're there like, you're an arse.
Yeah.
And this
Pretty
is
much.
the thing, isn't it? Like, Alonso is that guy that I can't work out if I love to hate him or hate to love him. And it's like
Yeah.
both extremes each weekend. Just because, again, he's not battling for race wins.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, we sort of see the rest of the race start to unfold. Then, like we said, obviously, Hamilton, second time round, pits 8 laps later than Max Verstappen. Whilst all this is going on, we find out Perez has no drink around a very warm track.
Yeah, very hot day, and he's in the interviews afterwards, after the race, he seemed so like exhausted.
He was dead. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He said it was the longest race of his career.
And like
I
his
think as
hands
well,
and feet were getting like numb through the race and stuff.
Yeah. A titanic battle again between Ferrari and McLaren unravelled. Obviously, we had Sainz versus Ricciardo. Sainz wasn't happy. He felt Ricciardo deliberately took him out. On the offboard, it just looks like Ricciardo got a bit of oversteer and Sainz was trying to turn across him, and their rear wheels got locked together.
Yep.
Pretty much all it was.
That's
Meanwhile,
basically what
whilst we've got all this going on, Bottas has still done nothing all day but
Bottas
get
has
past one
overtaken
AlphaTauri.
Tsunoda.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's it.
Meanwhile,
His pace was
Gasly's
so
suspension. Yeah, Gasly's suspension just fails. Or we think it was his suspension. It sounded unhealthy. Put
I
it that
didn't
way.
see it. I
So
prefer not to see.
all it basically was just a lot of rattling coming from the back end, which is either suspension or gearbox.
Hey, it sounds like my car.
Yeah, exactly. Is yours the suspension or the gearbox?
Well, right now it's the alternator, but it just doesn't make any
That's
noise
not
because
the
it just doesn't
back
turn
of
on.
the car.
It was the exhaust for mine, but that's off topic.
Fair enough. Yeah, we've already had your whole car saga
Yeah.
on the podcast as well.
Which
before.
now got even worse, but we ignore that.
Exactly. But yeah, sort of the last few laps are starting to unfold. Hamilton is taking time out of Verstappen here and there. Honestly, at this point, I was looking at it going, he's not going to be able to get past.
He was closing about as quickly as he was in Spain this year and Hungary last year, though, or 2 years ago.
Not quite as quickly, but he was still closing in.
And I guess the whole nature of this circuit is like
Exactly.
Sector 1 is basically a dirt killer, and then you
Exactly.
have a straight. If a straight was maybe straight after turn 1, Hamilton
Yes,
would have had a much bigger chance.
And this is the big question I wanted to ask you today, Jamie. Should DRS be enabled from 2 seconds behind?
No.
No, okay.
That make it so easy. It's already too easy some places.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, around specific tracks, though. Should there be in the FIA rulebook that either voted by the drivers
I don't think
or
so.
by the teams, it should be between 1 and 2 seconds? Like
I don't
1.5
think so.
seconds at some tracks? No?
I think it's allowing for a lot of like mistakes being made by humans deciding on the length of time you can activate it behind. So I think it's good how it is.
Because this was the thing, wasn't it, at COTA, obviously, because of that, obviously it made in a pretty fair fight, the DRS was effectively useless. Because you couldn't get close enough in the first place in a lot of instances to be able to then utilise it.
Yeah, but I kind of like that almost.
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult thing to call.
It's like you don't want to make overtaking too easy because then
and this is the fine balance, isn't it? Because people have moaned about DRS in the past. Personally, I would argue it's one of the best things that's come to the sport in the last 10 years from an entertainment side of things. No?
From an I mean, before you added entertainment, I was like, well, the V6 engines have been pretty good for the environment. The Halo's been pretty good for saving
lives. They've actually
lives.
used more resources for the hybrid system. They're probably more polluting than the V8s, all in all.
But the Halo has saved many lives, so that's
the Halo.
good.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Was probably the best thing to come to the sport in the last 10 years.
The VSC has also been pretty useful. Safety car Delta has been pretty useful. Yeah, I don't know.
But think how many more races would have been
3 tyre compounds
has
been good. Pirelli's been very useful.
Think we wouldn't have had the iconic "Here Comes Sebastian Vettel."
That was so iconic. That wasn't even DRS. That was like 1.
Oh yeah. Right. Okay. DRS is useless. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think DRS has saved us from a lot more snooze fest.
And I think, do you remember Abu Dhabi 2019, which you probably don't because it was very forgettable, but that was the race where they forgot to enable DRS for like 20 laps.
Yes. Yeah, I vaguely remember that now. Yeah, because was it Hulkenberg got flipped?
It was no, that was the year before. It was Hulk's last race in, well, supposedly last race at that point in F1. He didn't pit for ages, was up to like 4th, had Bottas and Leclerc behind him in a Renault, and at Abu Dhabi they were unable to pass him because there was no DRS.
Yeah, but
and you would just get a lot more
how often before have we
like
seen
that.
Ferraris get stuck behind Renaults at Abu Dhabi?
Well, exactly, yeah.
Some things never change.
Yeah, but yeah, I think if DRS wasn't a thing, you'd see so many more stupid races, like when like Red Bull would absolutely just use Gasly and Tsunoda to ruin the title fight.
Yes, exactly.
And stuff like that, just because they can, because DRS makes it, or no DRS would make it impossible to pass anyone.
Yes, yeah. But obviously late on then, Hamilton, the gap gets down to less than 2 seconds. Really, I must admit, it was exciting, wasn't it?
Very exciting.
We can look back at hindsight and think, oh, it was a bit of a disappointment that nothing... Well, for me anyway, it was a bit of a disappointment that nothing happened at the end. And there was, like I said, a big part of me that just didn't think Hamilton would be able to do anything there. And of course, this time around, that was what happened. But we've got to completely appreciate, we watched again the 2 best drivers in Formula 1 who are currently leagues above everyone else.
Yeah.
Properly going for it.
On top of their game
excuse
completely.
me.
Yeah, they were so... It was just... Was it 40 seconds back to Perez and like a minute and 20 back to 4th? It's just insane how much faster they are. Like you're getting to the point where at a short track, you'd be lapping everyone but the top 2.
Yes,
Like Bottas was lapped, Perez was halfway to it, or 2/3.
But he did have issues, to be fair. I think Perez, despite if he'd had water and things like that,
quick.
Would have. I reckon he would have probably been about 25, 30 seconds off.
Yeah, but still, the battle was really good. I, as a Max fan, enjoyed the race a lot because it felt to me like a bit of a turning point. Because ever since Zandvoort, the tide has kind of been going back towards Mercedes.
Would you argue that?
I think so.
I wouldn't argue that.
Monza, Mercedes were faster than Red Bull for sure.
But the tide didn't go that way because Verstappen.
But like it felt like, I mean that's debatable, but it felt like it was going back towards Mercedes. Russia, they definitely had a faster car. Turkey, Bottas won, so what would Hamilton have done if he hadn't had engine penalties? He'd have dominated. And then USA going into it, I was like, it's still going to be a bit of a Mercedes track.
But a lot of the issues at Istanbul, Adrian Newey apparently came back from his injury and sorted out immediately.
Yeah, it was set up stuff, wasn't it? So he came back and just did his stuff, and suddenly Red Bull win again. Like, who could have seen that coming?
Honestly, Adrian
He's
Newey
such a
is
genius.
Like the best investment. If you're looking to set up a Formula 1 team, pay that man as much money as he ever wants, because he will get you a car that can win world titles.
Leighton House would have been champions if they kept him.
Exactly. Well, that's how a lot of the 1990 McLaren was based on the undertray of that Leighton House. After it flipped at Paul Ricard, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they just started taking pictures.
Which is insane when you think about it. But yeah, Bottas obviously jumped Carlos Sainz late on. We then watched Kimi bottle it with 2 laps to go when he's in the points.
Position. Very unlike Kimi, actually. I mean, I think he had damage on his floor ever since Alonso drove into him. Yep. So I'll cut him a bit of slack, but still, it's a bit of a rookie error for a man who's in his 22nd season or whatever it is.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And again, I think if that was anyone else other than Kimi, it would have probably been a lot bigger of a deal, wouldn't it?
yeah, people would have slated them into next week for it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's on his way out anyway. There's no point really criticising his point.
Kimmy don't care. Kimmy don't care.
What's an extra point to him?
Lapped traffic as well, Jamie. I think we ought to talk about this quickly.
So it's actually weird because it's been like this before at COTA, back in 2012, wasn't it? Where there was a Hamilton behind another Red Bull that day actually, and like the only reason why he would have got close enough to pass was because of a lapped car in sector 1, which it would have been the same again yesterday if there's a lapped car in the wrong place, then it would have made the difference and he was close enough down the straight.
Yes,
but then the very last or second last lap, wasn't it? Schumacher.
Well, heading on to the last lap, wasn't it?
Yeah, Schumacher's usually very good at getting out of the way, unlike his teammate. And yeah, just didn't throughout the whole of the last sector really until
there's not
after
many
turn 19.
Places you can let someone through,
but
though,
still,
is there? It
when
wasn't
you're
great from him, but he's
when
not
you're
battling
last,
anyone.
He's got nothing to fight for. There's 2 leaders who are championship protagonists coming through. Just get out of the way. It's going to cost you 2 seconds, like whatever.
Exactly.
And then he doesn't get out of the way through turn 18 or turn 19, which cost Verstappen a couple of tenths at least. It put Hamilton momentarily into DRS. And then, luckily for Verstappen, the fact that he was out in front of him into turn between 19 and 20 meant he had DRS down the pit straight. Without that, if Hamilton had actually opened his DRS, which for some reason he didn't.
I don't think he had DRS.
I probably didn't have it, yeah.
I don't think he had it.
It could have been a bit of a difference if Schumacher had got out of the way of Verstappen before the detection and gave it to Hamilton or something. Then it probably could have swung the tide quite badly, and it would have been a very interesting last lap for sure. But luckily for Verstappen, he got the DRS and was able to just build that 1.2 seconds again.
Exactly, and this is the problem with Sector 1, isn't it?
I mean, it's a very, very exciting sector to drive and to watch in qualifying, especially when the cars are bouncing all over the place.
I've never really loved it in the same way, by the sounds of it, you have there.
I really like it. I mean, it's probably
with you, G.
do you remember the AOR season when I was like, I'm the best in the game at Sector 1?
Oh, I tried to forget it, but yeah.
Because I was purple in our tier. I'm class. I was so good at Sector 1 that game.
Purple in our tier. What a boy.
Our tier of 9 drivers as well at that point, probably.
Exactly.
But yes, exactly. I like that sector.
I think the problem for me with it is obviously it kills the flow of the track.
It is the flow of the track, that bit. Sector 3 is way less flow.
Oh no, sorry. I mean, it kills the dirty air, and it obviously therefore makes the back straight null and void.
But I think the difference would be, don't make the track worse. You just make the cars better and easier to follow.
Yes, yeah. This is the big thing, isn't it? We've really got to hope that next year's cars can help this out as well. But yeah, so we saw obviously anything else to add from the Grand Prix.
That really tall man on the podium was funny.
Shaquille O'Neal,
yeah,
love him. I gotta admit,
very good memes from that.
Yeah, that was what I quickly wanted to talk about. Did it feel this year that the US Grand Prix was more of an event than ever before?
Oh, for sure. I think it was Jenson Button in the interview with Hamilton afterwards was like, do you think F1's here to stay in America? And it's like, absolutely yes. There were so many fans there.
I think I saw a stat somewhere that I think 2017, I want to say there were 230,000 people over the weekend. This year was 400k.
Yeah.
Now,
it's crazy.
Some of that is probably helped based on the fact, obviously, because of COVID, people do want to do this stuff a bit more now.
Yeah.
But
also, F1's just getting bigger. That's
Liberty, again,
it's
this
one
is
of
a
the
podcast I want to do at
sports.
some point as well. No, in terms of social media, Formula 1 is the fastest growing major sport in the world right now.
They've done so well, honestly. And Drive to Survive is obviously something the hardcore fans don't like, but it's very, very useful for that sort of thing. Stuff like the Schumacher documentary. Drivers having a lot more social presence, everything like that is so good for the sport.
And there's some things still I'd love to see them change, but for the most part they've done pretty well. Yeah. And we've said this time and time again.
Compared to how it was in 16, where you had no race highlights on YouTube, no... the only thing I think they could try and do, which they don't have any power to do at the minute, is put it back on free TV.
Free TV and a loosening up of their footage online.
Yes.
Are the two big things. The FOM desperately need to move into this generation because you can only begin to imagine just how much more hype could be built up. Obviously, again, the best example I can use from this is NASCAR for me. I sort of enjoyed driving the cars on like iRacing and NASCAR the game and things like that over the last couple of years. But for me, it's been the content that creators make on YouTube that has really drawn me to the sport. Because the way some people are able to build up and tell stories because they're able to use footage from NASCAR is something that Formula 1 could easily do. There's so many talented content creators.
There are so many. Like, I think it's still up on YouTube, but it's based. You remember the Silver War?
Yes, yeah.
For 2016. That's like a 2-hour film that I can just watch on repeat because it's so good.
Exactly.
I mean, you probably don't want to because it's about Rosberg winning the title.
Exactly. I don't think I've ever watched it fully in its entirety, but I know exactly what you mean.
It's amazing.
And this is the thing, isn't it? There were so many great content creators as well from years ago, sort of before Bernie Ecclestone learned what YouTube was as well.
Yeah, like MSTF1, Cook Productions.
Yep. I'm thinking, I can't remember the name of the guy now.
Harrison
I don't know if you ever
101,
watched
he
the
was good.
one that did Daniel Ricciardo, the Honey Badger.
No, I've not seen
that was a great one. That's a great one.
Floz is the guy who did the Silver War. Recommend him.
Yeah, Floz was another great one. But there's just... It's one of those things that I'm sort of there like, why haven't Liberty sorted this out yet?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even Codemasters still get issues with it now. And we get issues with it with F1 Esports still. They're just so strange.
So protective about, like, all their content wants to be created by them, which I understand.
Yeah.
But
it makes sense commercially.
There's so many, freelance content producers who would do an amazing job. And it's also a great way, like, I've seen people like Josh Revel have been starting to get gigs with social media teams in F1.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen, or it would happen a lot more if they allowed people to use real footage.
Exactly. You think
it's so hard to make videos of F1, of real F1, without using footage.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely that is the one big thing, isn't it? That I'd love to see the F1 change. And, of course, obviously free-to-air.
Free TV. That would make it massive. That would make it global to stay.
Exactly. But, I mean, it is free in a lot of places, but they've got to make it free in 3 places. England, Italy, Germany. The 3 biggest F1 markets are still behind paywalls, which is ridiculous.
And you can't even get F1 TV in any of those countries, I don't think.
Exactly, because Sky have got exclusive deals with all of them. Which is just frustrating. Anything to add, though, from the USA before we quickly talk about Mexico then, Jamie?
Don't think so.
No, that's fine.
I think you may have got your prediction right, actually. I know I said, for America, I said Hamilton win. I think you probably said Hamilton win as well, actually.
I think I went Hamilton. I think I got the podium. I got all 3 drivers on the podium right, but I didn't get them in the right order. I got Hamilton, Verstappen the wrong way around.
Fair. Well,
but yeah, I'll take that as a dub still at the end of the day. Again, we'll probably talk a lot more about Mexico next week, but are we going to do top 3 now, or do you want to wait?
Let's give it a top 3 now. Why not?
Come on then, Jamie. Top 3.
I'll go Verstappen.
Yep.
Perez.
Yep.
Oh, if I'm going for the narrative of Hamilton taking an engine penalty, who would be 3rd? Who's good at Mexico? I'll go Charles Leclerc.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I am going to go Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez, and Hamilton's going to have a grid penalty. I just think he's going to get 2nd either way.
Maybe. It wouldn't surprise me, but hopefully not.
Yeah. We'll wait and see.
We haven't had a mental, stupid race in a while, actually. In
terms
of,
we're owed one, aren't we?
Cars and stuff, yeah.
This is the thing, isn't it? It seems like all 5 teams that we spoke about earlier on kind of have now got their act together. We've just sort of got that bit of a rift. Well, AlphaTauri are kind of in the middle, but the top 8 are pretty much decided most weeks
and
now,
Gasly can sometimes mix it with them on a good track for
Well, the top 9, basically decided. It's just a case of what order, where Gasly can sort of muscle himself in.
Especially in qualifying. There's just a randomer in Q3 just qualifying 10th.
Exactly.
Guaranteed before Q3.
Yes, yeah. Anything else to add, though, before we round this off?
Don't think so.
No.
Good race.
Yeah. The US Grand Prix, it certainly was hyped, but yeah, Cota's Sector 1 is deadly and ruins great racing. Thank you all so much for watching.
That's the Lewis fan speaking.
Exactly. Max fans are going out there to christen Cota Sector 1 as the new Holy Temple. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed, do make sure you leave a like and get yourself subscribed as well. And yeah, Jamie and I will be back next week out, obviously previewing the Mexican Grand Prix. We've got a couple of other things we need to discuss as well, of course. But yeah, we'll be back very, very soon with more F1 content.